And right there on the spot, he offered us $4,000. And what did we do?
We accepted because we were amazing negotiators back then.
Exactly right. We had never negotiated anything in our lives, so we didn't know. So we just literally says, that's 10x our money. Yeah, we accept, and we accepted that. Hey there, welcome to the Jack Bosch Show. I'm your host, obviously, Jack Bosch, and this is the place where you get the most up-to-date information on real estate and finance. Today, I'm super excited because I have the love of my life, the partner in crime, the co-founder of our companies, Mrs. Michelle Bosch, on the podcast with me. Hey, Michelle.
Thank you for having me, Jack. Finally, I was thinking, when is he finally going to ask, So,
well, this is one of our first podcast episodes, so you're right there at the very beginning on it. Let's tell people about land flipping. But first of all, let's start with how did we come up with land flipping, Michelle?
Well, I have to say that it originally started from us being incredibly unhappy with corporate jobs where we were putting 60, 80-hour weeks and our paychecks did not match the time, the energy, the effort that we were putting into those jobs. And so we started looking for other opportunities for side hustles that could basically give us what we were looking for, which was freedom. It was freedom, fulfillment, and something that really could help us really get along, financially, get ahead of the game, not just something where we were paying our bills and living paycheck to paycheck, which is what we were doing. On top of it, traveling 100% of the time and not being able to see each other a whole lot. So we were looking actively for opportunities, and we first actually looked into real estate and we looked into house flipping.
Also, if I want to add to that, for me, I think that one of the most important things was I was having a job. There was travel 100%, so I was gone, and you were working also long hours and things. And I wanted the freedom of time. I wanted the freedom of time to be able for us to spend time together, for us to not have to constantly hustle and run around. And because in my job and your job too, we both worked like probably 60 hours a week, and
especially at month end for me.
Had no time for each other. We would come back, we slept through the weekend just to do it again. And that wasn't the fulfillment of the American dream. Yeah. So we realized really, if I may say so.
And we had 2 weeks of vacation, and with both of us being from different countries, that gave us absolutely,
Germany.
That gave us absolutely zero time to stay connected to our families, to visit our countries of origin, and because we either had to pick 1 year going to Germany or 1 year going to Honduras, but
no time to actually get to know the country of our choice, which is the United States of America.
Yeah.
So no time to maintain relationships, no time for each other, no time to travel, no time to really anything. And to me, that was the biggest thing. It's like my goal wasn't even to build $1 million or multi-million dollars or 8-figure or 9-figure business. My goal was make enough money to quit that job and be able to stay home and have time to go travel. Perhaps make a little more money than we made in our other jobs, so we have a little extra money.
Replace the income,
But there were not big lofty goals at the beginning. We just set out to get rid of the pain in our life, right?
Yeah, that was it. And then we started looking into house flipping. We wanted to.
Do you remember how we came up with house flipping?
I remember us watching an infomercial from a gentleman by the name of Ron LeGrand.
And Ron is now a good friend of us. He's one of the godfathers of real estate. He's fantastic.
And us buying his program and getting a hold of some contracts and basically. We started putting into practice immediately, what he was teaching. And I think if we would have, kept on going a little bit longer with that, we may have succeeded. But I think there was a few things that were working against us when it came to house flipping and renovating homes and finding junkers really that you were going to rehab. And that was the fact, again, that we were not from this country. And therefore, we didn't know anything about real estate and how construction works and anything with the terminology of even, materials, with dealing with contractors and just
estimating repairs.
None.
No idea how to estimate repairs. So, and then also, again, the fact that we both were traveling, or that I was traveling a lot, really made it really, really hard to supervise any kind of construction process. So I remember we went after we found real estate as a general theme, and watched infomercial from Ron LeGrand and bought his $57 program. We moved on to the next thing, which was tax lien investing, because I remember me reading in Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. On about 2/3 in, Robert Kiyosaki talks about his neighbor, and he tells him that he's making 16% on his money with tax lien certificates. Well, first thing is, I didn't even know what that word meant.
Yeah, what are tax liens and what are tax deeds and
what does that even word? I mean, you come from Germany, you come from Honduras, you never heard the word terminology tax liens. You never heard even the word 2x4s or drywall or sheetrock or anything like that. So we're like completely lost. So I looked that up and it blew our minds that there is in the United States, and by now I know the number, every year there's $5 billion worth of real estate that the owners let go to tax sale, either tax deed or tax lien sale. Basically, they don't pay the property taxes, and there's a process in place in the U.S. that through which the owners can get, which the government can get that property back, and then they sell it at an auction or you foreclose on it and so on. But bottom line is, if you don't pay property taxes in the United States, you ultimately lose that property.
Which blew our mind because we, in both of our countries, there's no way in hell that you're going to lose your property over property taxes. So that was like something that completely rocked our world. And I think it's part of what gave us an advantage. And, I always call it like the immigrant advantage. And it has two components. One of it, you see opportunities that other people don't see. And number two, you're willing to work and have zero fear of hard work compared to perhaps other people that, are born in this country and do not come from, any hardship whatsoever and are not leaving a past behind to start a new reality, a new world, a new dream. And so we had those things working in our favor. And that's why I think when we saw this tax lien, tax deed opportunity, I remember, the very first auction where I attended was actually in a tax deed state. It was California. And I went up to Sonoma County and I noticed that most of the properties that were coming up there for auction actually were pieces of land, not houses. And it occurred to us, that why would we wait 5 years, which is the time period that it is required in California before a property goes to tax auction, of non-payment of property taxes, for that seller to lose that property. So what we were like, okay, why don't we reach out to this seller, to this owner of vacant land much, much sooner, maybe on year one, maybe on year two, maybe on year three, because a person at some point, decided to let go of that property and stopped paying their taxes.
Yeah, the thinking really behind the scenes here is like we saw these auctions. We went to the auction. We had very little money to our name. We had a few $1,000s that we owned, and then that we had in the savings account. So Michelle went to the auction with the intention of actually bidding on and buying one of these properties because the minimum bid was $1,000. But they went through the roof right away, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 that these properties were bid up to. And she basically came back with her tail between her legs, like with empty handed. It's like, sorry, it didn't work. But then
incredibly competitive, incredibly competitive environment.
But then what you just said is really important, because then we had that thought that says, hey, wait a second. These properties have been, the owners of these properties, particularly in California, have not paid property taxes for almost 6 years. Because in California, you have to wait, the state has to wait 5 years before they even get the right to sell that property, and then usually takes another half a year before they even sell the property. So these people whose properties went for auction, they had not paid property taxes for 5.5 to 6 years. So the thought that you just said came up is like, can really be summarized in 2 words. Why wait?
Yeah.
Why should we wait is what we ask each other.
Waiting is a trap. I always say that.
Yeah. Why should we wait until 5.5 years have passed, until the county puts up an auction, until the county puts up advertising, until the county goes and fills up a room with 400 sharky people in deep pockets and rolls of cash in their property, and then have them all compete for these properties? What if we could find out who the people are that stopped paying property taxes, whether they just stopped paying last week or their last year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, And what if we could contact them directly? And that became the foundation for our method initially, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That was originally how it all started. It was being at the right moment at the right time and really being cognizant of what the opportunity is. Again, it's that seizing the opportunity that perhaps another person doesn't see.
Because everyone attended these auctions. Everyone went, like masses of people went to these auctions because it's easy to figure out which properties are tax delinquent when the county gives you a list of them.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't easy, at least at the time. It is now much easier to figure out who just owes property taxes for 1 year, because that was kept in the vaults of the county.
Yeah.
And we had to do phone call after phone call after phone call until we finally find the right person in the county who would say like, yeah, I got this information. And then for a fee of $100, $200, they would send you that information.
Yeah.
Would send us the information.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, but at that point, we weren't just focused on land yet, right? We just sent out.
When I went to the auction, I was hoping that I could get that I could bid on a house for $2,000 because that's what the initial starting bid was for, and that I would be able to get it for that, and eventually get
that house sold for probably $100,000 or so or more. But what we then did is we got the mailing address of those people that owe property taxes, and we sent them a letter.
Yeah.
But then something strange happened. The only people who responded were landowners.
Yeah.
So do you remember? Well, I remember this. Perhaps you remember it differently. We were really scratching our head at the time. It was like, what do we do now? What do we do with those pieces of land?
Yeah.
Like we have no idea. Like, does anyone want land?
Yeah.
So we proceeded extremely cautiously.
Yeah.
And I remember that first deal that we got with that method. That was an infill, a lot in a rural community of
here.
northern Arizona. We live in Arizona. We started in our own home state. That was we basically saw some lots in the neighborhood that sold for about $8,000 to $10,000.
Yeah.
So we offered that person $400 for that property.
Well, we only had like $3,500. Really, that was our capital seed money, to start investing. So I'm like, we couldn't. We
offer
couldn't,
them $10,000.
Yeah, we couldn't offer them $10,000. And like you said, we had multiple people call us back that were interested in selling their property. It was almost like a 10% response rate in that very first mailing. And so we needed to make those $3,500 really, we needed to stretch them. So I'm like, I can't offer a whole lot for this.
Which really means that at that time, we did not understand how to do double closings. We did not understand how to do assignments. We did not understand how to do deals with using none of your own money, how to use deals using other people's money, how to use deals using transactional funding. We just were, as we call each other sometimes, muffins, right? We were just like, we're just beginners, rookies, no idea, no clue. And but what the big benefit was that by actually with a piece of land, at least we didn't have to estimate repairs.
Yeah, that was so much easier. We just needed to look at what other similar properties of similar acreage were selling for in that area. And based on that, and of course on my budget, present an offer, and Lord and behold, it gets accepted.
The guy accepts our $400 offer.
Yes.
Now, just a quick thing. That was a 1 acre property on a dirt road in a rural area with most utilities to the property.
Yeah.
And the seller, if I remember it right, had just gotten through a divorce.
Yeah.
Was moving to Colorado and wanted to basically leave a clean slate behind. He wanted to just start brand new. And somehow that lot was like the lot that his ex-wife and him had bought together to build their home on there. So he had like the memories of the lot would remind him of his ex-wife. And apparently there was an ugly divorce and he did not want to be reminded of his ex-wife. So sometimes it's not even there's no rational aspect of why people give those properties to you cheap. Sometimes it's a very emotional aspect that they're just negatively emotionally attached to that property because it brings up some memories that they no longer want to have. So in this case, he just gave it to the thing for $400. So we actually bought it, $400, paid for it, went to the property.
Yeah. with our little for sale by owner sign and our hammer. And I remember buying at Home Depot this orange, spray paint so that I could spray paint the wooden stakes that I was going to use to put the for sale by owner sign. And as we are doing that, and Jack is like hammering in, the wooden stake onto the ground, Mr. and Mrs. Corona, I still remember them, right, walk out, from the neighboring property and, ask us if we were the new owners of the property. And we said yes. And I don't know if you want to.
I was like, what are you doing here? It's like, well, we're selling the property. And I remember him saying, oh, dang, I always wanted to buy this property.
Yes.
But he didn't do anything about it. He could have contacted the neighbor. He could have contacted the owner. He could have offered $400, but he didn't. Which goes to show most people just in life, most people don't take action.
Yeah.
We did. So we got that deal. And then he asked us what we want for the property. And we hadn't even thought about what we should ask for it. So he says, I don't know. What do you offer? And right there on the spot, he offered us $4,000. And what did we do?
We accepted because we were amazing negotiators back then.
Exactly right. We had never negotiated anything in our lives, so we didn't know. So we just literally says, that's 10x our money. Yeah, we accept, and we accepted that. Now, could we have gotten perhaps $2,000 more for it? Yes, but does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter, especially because they invited us to a wonderful, nice meal. They had an outdoors kitchen. And I remember us, enjoying a meal with them and, really celebrating that they had the piece of land that they've always wanted because they wanted to have easy, ingress and egress out of their property. And this property would allow that for them. And in that way, they would guarantee that there would be no other neighbor next door that would build anything on it. So for them, it was, it was a no-brainer to get, this adjacent parcel of land and added, to what they already own there. And so it was, I still have amazing memories.
With ham, turkey, eggs, all kinds of stuff from their own farm.
Oh, yeah, eggs from the chicken farm.
Because, again, as Michelle said, they actually, and that is actually also something very interesting, guys, when you listen to this podcast, when we talk about land flipping, not every land buyer is going to want to build on the land. If I remember this right, this land still, because it had electricity to it and had water to it, but it did not have sewer.
Yeah.
So therefore, the sewer needed to be done through a septic system.
Yeah.
And the buyer had actually had this property tested for feasibility for sewer septic system.
Percolation test.
Yeah. And it had failed the percolation test, which means that now you can still build on it, but you have to have a more expensive sewer system in there, septic system in there. Septic system's the right word. And he didn't want to spend that money either. It's another reason he gave it to us for pennies on the dollar. But again, the Coronas, the buyers, what they wanted there, they had a particular problem. And the problem was that there, right behind their house, or like across the street from their house, was a farm that they owned. But in order to get to that farm, they needed to drive a mile all around town to access their farm.
Or around the block, yeah.
If they only had that lot, they could make it into a driveway and put a new gate on there. And now they could walk into their farm. And instead of having to take the car and drive half a mile or around the block or something like that. That was a huge advantage for them to just being able to do that. So not every buyer wants to build. Some people want to use their land to put an RV on it. Some people want to use it to park a car on it. Some people want to use it to put a car, to use it as a driveway. Yeah. Some people just want to park it for value appreciation. It's different, million different reasons why people buy land. In that case, it was to actually create a driveway.
Yeah. So that was in a nutshell our very first piece of land. And I mean, I would have never guessed that.
And we 10x our money.
Yeah, that we would 10x our money with that. Number two, that, at some point, us being from different countries, that by giving and by offering and being of service to buyers and sellers, through buying and selling land, that we would make the, our dream, our American dream come true, and the dreams of other people come true of being an owner, of feeling like you're an owner of something, of a piece of dirt. That is a real gift. And I would have never guessed. And that's been 4,500, transactions later, where there's been a happy seller and a happy buyer. And
let me say that again. Since then, we have done 4,500 plus deals all around the country in 17 states, over 100 counties, all the way from Hawaii to Florida. 95% of them without, or 98% of them without ever seeing the properties from the comfort of our home, while doing this remotely, virtually, selling properties to people overseas, buying from people overseas, but always the land is in the United States. And with that, now our daughter goes to private school. We live in a beautiful home. We have a place in Hawaii. We travel the world. We take 6 to 8 weeks every summer and go travel around the world. We fulfilled every single dream that we were looking for through land flipping. And how many times have we actually built something on the land?
Not a single time.
Not a single time. How many times did we have to estimate repairs on a piece of land?
Not a single time.
How many times did we have to deal with roof or mold or foundation issues?
Zero.
Right? That's again. So without knowing anything about that, we carved ourselves a niche in real estate that wouldn't require knowing that. Now, of course, you still learn a ton about real estate. A few years later,
about subdividing.
We started in 2002. So shortly afterwards, we started subdividing lots. We started splitting lots. Then 2008 hit the market. Aggregating lots. 2008, the market crashed. We continued flipping land through it. We just buy them cheaper, sell them cheaper, right? Because when you get them for 10 cents on the dollar, it doesn't really matter what the market does. You can still make profit. But then we started being able to take that profit and buy single family, then buy multifamily on it.
For long-term hold.
For a long-term hold. And now we have a portfolio of almost 1,000 multifamily units. We have cash flow coming through many, many streams of income. And it all started with a simple idea of how to get a hold of people who no longer want their properties. Oh, by the way, we no longer focus on tax delinquent landowners.
Actually, probably a good 2 years into it, the next rumination or the next thought came, and it was, well, if these are people that want to give up their land because they're delinquent in property taxes, I wonder if there's other people that for other reasons, that does not mean that they're, delay on property taxes, that there's other reasons that they would want to sell their piece of land. Maybe they decided to buy 2 pieces of land, one in Florida and one in Arizona, and they decided to end up retiring in Florida. And now their Arizona lot is there, just really creating a burden for them. And so we started then really targeting all owners of vacant land, whether they were delinquent or not. And I mean, that's where we saw, response rates really explode in terms of like the number of calls that we were able to get from an interested, seller wanting to sell their piece of land. And I think that was a good thought. That was a good idea, Jack. I think it may have been your idea. I don't think it was mine.
Probably yours. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, if you think about it, we realized that there's some counties where there's only 500 tax delinquent lots. So you don't have a lot to go after, but that county might have 15,000 pieces of land in it if it's a small county. That county might have 200,000 pieces of land if it's a large county. And we said, I wonder if there's not people that are like that close to giving up on paying property taxes. They're sick and tired of owning these properties. They don't want to have it anymore. They're sick and tired of paying property taxes. They're not using the property. They don't want to pay for landscaping all the time. They don't want to have to clean up the property. They don't want it. They never go out there, et cetera, et cetera. I wonder if there's not people that grudgingly pay their property taxes and still want to get rid of these properties. Yeah. And sure enough, we tested it out and boom, business started exploding. Business started exploding. So no longer only tax delinquent properties. Any properties, usually with absentee owners and a bunch of other criteria, is what we're focusing on. And now we have a team, right? We have a team in place that buys these properties or that gets them under contract. And even better now that we have been teaching this since 2008, we have been teaching this, and we have a goal of creating 10,000 millionaires. And in the process of teaching now, we also in the process of doing more deals, we also realized we actually don't even have to buy these properties. Yeah. Like that was a limiting belief at the beginning, that we only had a few $1,000s and we need to split it up between the properties that we do. Now, 98% of all our students they're doing deals out there, never put a single dollar of their money into any deals. They put them on a contract with no earnest money deposit. They turn around and find a buyer. They use the buyer's money to pay everyone involved. They use assignments. They use transactional funding to do deals. There's many, many different ways that you can do those deals without having to use any of your own money.
Yeah, and
we created a system that now has made land sexy, that has made over 1,000 people millionaires already. And go ahead, you wanted to say something.
No, I just wanted to say that, that our very first deal was an actual property up in Sonoma County where we didn't use any of our money and we did double escrow, and where we didn't have the money still for the, to cover the purchase price. So we put it under option. We actually used an option contract. And I actually used that original option contract from Ron LeGrand from a couple years prior, and went up there, put it, under an option contract for $100. That was my option consideration. In order for me to have the ability to purchase that piece of land for $75,000. And we sold it for $105,000.
I think the purchase price, the agreement was $70,000 or $75,000, 70. Yeah. And then we had it on a contract. We sold it for $105,000. And after paying some of the back taxes that it had and some of the other things, I think we netted either 28 or 32, one of the two. Let's say $30,000 on that deal without putting a dollar into it. And then we're like, oh my God. First of all, Ron LeGrand's program paid off. Thank you, Ron. Like, he's a great friend of us now.
$57. And, we got it full ROI.
We never did house flipping to that point. We ended up never doing house flipping, but the contract still worked for that. So there's a point of view. Whatever education you bought, go through it. It's always going to be useful for something, right?
Yeah.
And we made 30 grand, and that's when it popped. Oh my God, we can make money without even using any money.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. And then we were off to the races.
Yeah, that was the beginning of an amazing journey. And I can be more grateful, for us being able to have found this niche, even though every time, somebody asks me, how have you been able to build your wealth, or, what are you doing? How come you guys are being so successful within real estate? And I tell them that it's land. Every time I say that, people look at me like I have three heads. Because it's not the normal. It's not what people think of when they think about real estate. They think about, being a mortgage broker, being a realtor, flipping houses, renovating houses, wholesaling them, multifamily, super sexy right now. And so nobody thinks about land. And what is beautiful about land, which is, I think, to put this into full circle, is that you don't have to have gazillions of dollars to begin with. You don't have to have a whole lot of experience. You can do it without a big team, without a team. I mean, we started just you and I as a side hustle, with about 10 to 12 hours a week back then.
Nights and weekends.
And nights and weekends, a couple hours every single day after our, regular JOBs. And it was possible to replace our income, wait for our green cards. And the moment that we had our green cards, I remember us putting in our resignation.
October 17th, 2002.
Yeah, we still have that ingrained in our memory. And we've never looked back
2003.
since. We've never looked back since, and it's been a great journey. It has also allowed us, land by using seller financing allowed us to very, very quickly, build passive income to replace the income from our corporate jobs. And it has also allowed us to basically move all those profits from the quick wholesales into, houses for long-term hold, like we did in 2009. We built a portfolio of single-family homes in 3 different states. Then in 2016, while we still continued flipping land, then started looking at, instead of a door at a time, 100 doors at a time, and started going into multifamily. And to this day, we continue flipping land, and that is our active income that we go and park in other asset classes. And all this to say that land was the beginning of it all, and it's an amazing gateway asset class to create incredible leaps in your income and also create passive income,
Absolutely.
So generational wealth.
It is the best hidden secret in real estate. And if you want to know more about that, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Right? If you listen to this on iTunes, then make sure you subscribe. Give us a 5-star review. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and comment below. And because there's many, many more sessions coming up on all things real estate, on all things money hacks, on all things finance, on all things wealth creation.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, we're going to drop an episode again about land flipping, because it's what has been the foundation for our wealth. With that said, thank you very much, Michelle, for being on the show here.
I just wanted to add one more thing. We have an upcoming masterclass.
Oh, yes.
So,
absolutely.
and it's called the Land Profit Masterclass. So if you are in any way, shape, or form interested in making, quietly millions and really enjoying,
that's what we've been doing.
The
making
fruits,
quietly millions.
Yeah, enjoying the fruits of a method that is simple and super scalable. Join us at the upcoming masterclass by going to landprofitmaster.com, landprofitmaster.com. We are going to be your hosts. It's a free 5-day, super interactive, hands-on workshop, our most hands-on free training that we offer.
And it's only 1 hour a day, by the way. It's 5 days plus a few bonus days, but it's 5 days. The main content is being shared over 5 days, every morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, right? Starting very soon. So go to landprofitmaster.com at 9 a.m. Pacific for 1 hour every day, including plus then some homework and so on. But everyone can do this in your free time, and on the weekend, you can implement those sessions. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, landprofitmaster.com. We'll put it into the comments. We'll put it into the show notes. Make sure you go there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me.
Super excited. All right, guys, subscribe, share this with your friends, comment, ask your questions. We'll be happy to answer every question that you have. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.